Good evening. I would like to call to order the regular council meeting of the District of Sechelt on Wednesday, December 2nd. It is 7:01 p.m. and we have an amended agenda. So I want to make sure that all councilors have the amended agenda that includes item 10.10. If you don't have that, you can download it from the file share. And then I want to make another amendment to the agenda that we have already amended. I would like to move item 10.9 up to follow item 10.3. Siobhan is presenting both of those, so we'll do those back to back and cut her loose tonight. All right, any other modifications, changes to be made to the agenda?
No, you're
Not seeing any, thank you. I'll look for a motion to adopt the amended agenda as amended. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. So we have two delegations here with us this evening. Our first delegation is Ross Powell and Diana Robertson, and it is the final report on the 2020 Arts Festival. So take it away, Diana.
Okay, I'm just going to switch over my screen to show a PowerPoint presentation. But first, I'd like to say hello to Mayor and Council and staff. It's been a while since we have done any kind of presentation to you. So, you know, it's interesting times. That's all I can say. And just want to make sure I can share this. So just give me a second here. You're going to have to see my notes. There, can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Or are there little people in the middle here?
Now it says final report November 2020.
Okay, very good. Okay, let's just go back one. So there's our title page. Can you see that okay? Right.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so just to as a reminder to everybody present, it's now been 16 years since the Sechelt Arts Festival was first presented, and it's quite a milestone, I must say. And we were so fortunate this year to be able to actually have a festival. And even though we had to rethink our premise a little bit, everybody was very grateful and appreciative that we were able to bring forward something like this within the COVID rules and regulations for the time. So we're quite delighted, and we learned a few things along the way. So it was quite a rewarding experience, and I hope it was a rewarding experience for the district as well, who of course is our major supporter in this process. There were, of course, quite a few challenges that we had to deal with this year, including the fact that many festivals had been canceled, and you know, we were on pins and needles right up until September as to whether we would be able to continue presenting the festival. But so many things had already been put in place. Most of our funding was solidified by then, and we just waited virtually day by day to see exactly what was going to happen with reports and indications of how the virus was affecting our community. Since just as a basic backdrop, every year in December or January, we have to actually figure out what we can present for the festival. So even though we had started with an idea of Vision 2020, we didn't really feel that we needed to change that because we felt that it was still an interesting title for the festival, just with a different context. So we utilized that in our marketing, and it was very powerful from that particular point of view. And then we adapted it for the various events as was appropriate. So that worked out quite well. We did have to learn how to do something a little bit different in presenting both live and a digital plan for the festival, in case we got shut out of our live presentations at the end, at the last minute. And we did have to figure out how to continue fundraising with a lot of emphasis on getting our budget met, but also how to keep our sponsors and our grant money solid and in place throughout the year without having it being revoked in any way or people losing interest. We also had to figure out how to work in a budget for digital options, because we hadn't had to do that before to any extent, especially from our own point of view of having to video and edit our own material in order to put it online. So, there were some very interesting challenges this year that had to be met for sure. The other thing that was an interesting challenge was our venue availability. We actually didn't know until a week before the Ravens Cry Theatre opened for us that we were really going to be able to do a live theater show at the Ravens Cry, but everything fell into place, and that worked in our favor. Also, of course, because of the VCH taking the Seaside Center again, we didn't have that access as well. So we had to move to B plan very, very quickly in order to provide an art exhibition venue that would work for people. And fortunately this year, once again, one of the open venue accessibility restrictions or whatever, or lack of restrictions, was that art galleries were allowed to be open on a regular basis, as long as we did contact tracing, and we're very careful about how many people we allowed in at one time. So our art exhibition venues were allowed to be open the same capacity as they had been without any restrictions. Although with the theater, we were still restricted to 50 people in seats at any one time, and only being allowed to sell 50 tickets as well. So, there was a lot of rethinking that had to go on, and these terms, of course, became synonymous with our marketing and everything else that we were doing, whether it was rethinking, repurposing, recreating, and even re-indigenizing certain programs. Once again, the festival theme we felt still resonated going into 2021, so we just adjusted how that applied to different events. We decided halfway through the year, or even closer to the events, that we needed to adjust our budget to actually remove or reduce any kind of ticket revenue, which normally would net us about $15,000 in the past few years. So we really had to rethink that. And at the very last moment, because there were certain grants that became available to us and certain options, I went out on a limb in August or September and applied for some grants that helped us with the adjustment of reduced revenue from ticket sales. We also had to retrofit a retail space with your help. Thank you very much. We ended up with 2 retail office spaces for our art venue, which was very interesting this year. And the artists were very pleased with the results. So that was very good. And people visiting were quite interested in what we had done to create this new space, you might say. And also we went into the mall this year, and we, with the help of our partner at Trail Bay Developments, they allowed us to do our heritage exhibit and another mural, community mural in the mall this year. So that helped to offset our space situation. And we also had partnered with the Sunshine Coast Arts Council again, and had our immersive projected art venue in the gallery theater, in the gallery in the Arts Council building. So, all in all, that worked out well in the end. And then, of course, we had to reduce a few events. We ended up, reducing the number of live workshops because it just wasn't going to work for us this year. And we also had to cancel a film event just because of potential lack of revenue regarding that event. So reimagine was a theme as well for everything that we were doing this year. Just to briefly go over some of the events, we were able to have live performances this year, which was unheard of, other than a few very limited things that had been going on at the Legions around town. We had 3 visual art venues, which was great because they were allowed under the COVID regulations. We also were able to carry forward with our plans from December of last year and provide 2 world premieres. Both terrific live events as well as videotaped events for the public. And also we introduced, with the help of Roguefest as a production partner, an amazing idea that Ross had investigated regarding doing fire jugglers and fire dancers, people that we'd worked with before that had this great group that came to Sea Shield specifically to do a wonderful outdoor event on the last weekend. The other thing we always emphasize is that most of our events or all of our events are for all ages. So once again this year, we were able to go forward with the community mural project, even though people had to paint in their own bubbles or a maximum of 2 at a time. Normally they wore masks. This was one of our volunteers who was painting on her own, so that was okay. And we were able to produce this grand mural that is now on display in the Trail Bay Mall. Also, we were able to go forward with our Meme Me immersive art project, which was developed in tandem with Coast Streaming. This is something we've done for a few years in a row, and it's always a wonderful, successful event for all ages. And that was held at the Sunshine Coast Arts Center. We also were able to do dance classes because we had a venue large enough in Sea Shield at the Waldorf Ballet in order to present 2 masterclass dance workshops hosted by Joshua B. My Shar guest artist who's a great friend of the dance community on the Sunshine Coast. And alas, we were still able to do our heritage exhibit, which many, many people enjoy every year. And this year it was about the steamship heritage and the story regarding that in tandem with the Lady Rose story, which is the last remaining steamship still on the water, parked in Porpoise Bay right now. So reinvention was also part of this theme this year and part of the marketing emphasis. And it seemed to be very appropriate considering the times. Results, well, we had some great results, we're very happy to say. The Dave Brubeck Centenary Concert, which had been originally canceled. Dan Brubeck, who of course is a Sunshine Coaster and a wonderful international jazz drummer, had to cancel an event with his brothers, taking this show on the road internationally in April because he himself got COVID, unfortunately, and had to come home. And we were very fortunate because it was October. He was much better and well enough to go forward with this live performance with 3 grand jazz performers along with him and Catherine Penfold, who of course is a wonderful local jazz chanteuse. So we were, even though we were only able to release 50 live tickets, of course we were sold out in 24 hours, but we also have received an estimated 1,200 online video views, including almost 900 on YouTube to date. So we've had a great response to that, and people continue to watch that every day because we made that video, we produced that video, so it's not part of we have no restrictions on how long we can air that video, which is great. Now the video also did show for some limited time on Coast TV, as well as a dance event that we did. This was a great a great event for us, as well as the 2020 Vision Art Exhibition worked out quite well. This year we had 7 artists exhibiting in the main venue, the main art exhibition venue. The program was based on photography, even though some of the artists were digital photographic artists, as well as analog photographic artists. So there was quite a range. It just wasn't traditional photography. And then we also brought in Matthew Talbot Kelly, who's of course a wonderful 3D multimedia artist. He had been working on a show in Gibson's, and the finished show and then some was actually shown during October at the art exhibition. So we got some great reviews on that. A lot of people really enjoyed the show this year, even though our attendance was down quite substantially because we couldn't have students visiting. And of course, we had to have limited attendance. Just a little note about some of the variety and some of the comments from the art exhibition. We thoroughly used all of the rethink, reimagine, re-indigenize, repurpose words as part of this event. Also, the immersive multimedia experience, which was co-produced by Steve Wright and Mike Bray, engaged 8 youth artists, dancers, and musicians, because they did a live stream one evening, but they also had a still imagery presentation for 2 weeks during the festival. And they also, at their live stream show, they engaged over 1,000 people on Facebook. Once again, the Lady Rose Community Mural Painting Project was an integrated heritage and community engagement project that worked out very well. We were able to keep it up for a couple of weeks longer than the festival because of approval from the mall. And people were thoroughly engaged by the information provided, as well as being allowed to paint on the paint by number mural. So that was fun. We estimated we had over 150 people based on our sign-in sheets that actually participated in the mural, but dozens more people that stopped and were engaged in the story of our steamship heritage. We were also very fortunate to have a world premiere event at the Ravenscry Theatre this year. And once again, this was something that had been planned back in December or January in order to apply for grants. So even though we were all working through these very, very tough restraints, Josh Beamish ended up going to the Netherlands, worked in Vancouver, worked with different choreographers in different areas in order to pull this show together. So everything at the event was new, all new work. And he hopes to take this show on a tour starting in February in Vancouver and areas beyond. But it was a great opportunity for our dance student community to participate in this, whether it was through observing the rehearsals and or being involved in the masterclass workshops, or even, being able to see the finished product either live or in video. We also did a complete video of this for archival purposes, as well as for teaching purposes and for presentation on YouTube. Here are 2 of the dancers, the local dancers that were selected by audition that got to have a piece choreographed for them by Joshua Beamish and then presented on the evening of the event. So if you go to the video, both of the videos, the Brubeck video and this video, are on YouTube. You can access them through the website. And you'll see these 2 wonderful young dancers. One is from Waldorf, one is from Coast Academy of Dance. Natalie is only 13 years old, and they just did a marvelous job in a very short period of time with very little rehearsal in order to get ready for this event. Just as a quick summary, even though our attendance was probably down by to about 1/3 of what we would normally have. Normally we would have anywhere from 4,000 to 4,500 people per year. We still had 1,500 live attendees between the events. That was our calculation because we had to do sign-in sheets at every single event for COVID tracing. And through our co-productions with Rogue Fest and co-streaming and Paintilio for the mural, and our people that we usually count on too, we did engage about 34 volunteers. And we ended up with 8 free events and then our 2 ticketed events for the theater. We also had 36 professional or pre-professional artists or performers employed through this event. Everybody receives either a contract fee or an honorarium. Also, we contracted 13 sound, lighting, video, carpentry, painting, and photographic technicians throughout this event, either before, during or post festival. And we also worked with 3 collaborating production partners this year, as we have in the past with co-streaming, but also Rogue Fest, which was great. They were very excited to work with us, and Paintilio for the community mural. Now, I guess the big thing when you say the festival was a success, even though we didn't have as many people as we would have liked to have had, and we didn't have the ticket revenue we normally have, the fundraising goals were still achieved. And our audience and artist appreciation level was extremely high based on all the comments we received. Even though we had to bear with maximum allowed capacities, it was still a success for the community. We feel very strongly that people really enjoyed being able to get out within certain parameters and enjoy these events as much as possible. Yes. Now, as I said before, we usually bring in a lot more volunteers, but this year we decided to keep it fairly tight because a lot of our volunteers in the community are over 60, and we didn't want to risk them, and a lot of them didn't want to be frontline workers. So we were still able to get a good crew of volunteers this year, thanks to some of our partners. And they include performance ushers, ticket takers, front desk contract tracers, and greeters. And all in all, we were very pleased that we were able to recruit those volunteers. Budget summary is there's a revenue and expenses report when all was said and done. As I said before, we were able to get a little bit more grant funding this year than we had last year. Our budget last year was about $121,000, and of course, we met that. And this year, we did go out and got some additional income from the Community Foundation, which was great. And our sponsors all stayed intact, which was really wonderful to see. Our community sponsors, our corporate sponsors, and our donors all came back to the table regardless of possible problems that they may have been going through themselves with COVID. And we were very happy to see them support the festival again under such difficult times. You can see our revenue in ticket sales were still about $5,000 this year, but that's still quite a bit lower than in previous years. This slide indicates all of our sponsors, including the presenting sponsor, of course, which is the District of Sechelt, and our government sponsors, our platinum sponsors. RBC Foundation specifically sponsors our young artists in the community, and our corporate sponsors under Gold and Silver Partners, and our production, some of our production partners. And then we also have a long list of donors as well. I've only included a few of our comments in the material, but sort of a cross section from all of the different events. But once again, these were left with us at the art exhibition venues or after the dance program or the Brubeck program. A lot of comments from the visual art exhibitions, obviously, because we had 3 of them on the go. Also, a couple of our volunteers gave us some comments as well, which were nice to see. We've also had continuing comments on YouTube from the YouTube videos that are online, which we haven't been able to put into this presentation, but they're sort of ongoing. Now, all in all, we are very pleased that we were able to meet our budget for 2020, that we were able to present a plethora of different events for various age groups and ages. And now, of course, we have to look forward to 2021. And one of the key things that we've decided would be an interesting theme to pursue is the idea of unity, and which also would help to look at our variety of artists that come from different backgrounds and come from different cultures, and look at ways that we can celebrate that community diversity through the arts. It gives us some interesting things to work with. Unity also happens to be, of course, a cultural and societal keyword these days, but you know, perhaps we could take a look at our own Sunshine Coast and our own community, seashell community, and explore issues that bring us together, and also issues that may divide us, but look at those through music, dance, and art, and provide new experiences through those eyes. The other thing that we've talked about in the past, but perhaps we haven't really done a lot of work in, is looking at our unique cultural fabric and tying more into the Francophone community here. And obviously working with our Aboriginal partners more. We try to do that every year, but whether you're from Poland or Germany or the Netherlands or Canada or wherever it may be, we all have wonderful stories to tell. And it would be a great opportunity to share some of those stories through various artistic means. So that's one area that we're looking at that would be an interesting way to look at 2021. Once again, we talk about these issues now because in January we have to apply for our grants. And one of the major ones, of course, is our support from the federal Canadian Heritage Grant. So we have to have a heritage component, visual art component, music, dance, a community festival, full community festival vision. And so thinking about this now would be something that would be resonating with Canada Heritage in particular. And from there, we also look at BC Arts Council and some of the other RBC Foundation and some of the people that would also find this a viable type of festival content that they would want to fund. It's very important to them to know that they are supporting us with something like this that would be important to them as well. So once again, sorry for the fuzzy slide here at a large size, but as with every year, the music, dance, art, and heritage, and workshops and community engagement is what it's all about during this shoulder season festival. And even though we didn't have a great tourist season this year, we were able to reach out to the local community and the Sunshine Coast and provide meaningful engagement and meaningful arts and cultural presentations that we really do believe that the community appreciated. Questions?
All right.
There you go.
Yes, thank you for that presentation. Are there any
Sure.
questions for Diana or Ross? I'm not seeing any hands up. I did have one. Well, just a comment, I guess. I understand that there is going to be a session open to artists and producers, etc., like you on the Sunshine Coast, looking at the future of arts and culture funding. That'll be upcoming, so you'll be watching for an invitation to that, and that's with through our MP and the federal government. So
Mm-hmm.
reaching out to the community for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that might tie into what your plans are for next year as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I know it was difficult this year. I took in a few of the different events and really enjoyed myself. Thank you for all the work you did. Thank you for being flexible and, you know, the reimagination and all that. Yeah, it was, I know it was tough this year. And also, you know, not knowing till the last minute whether or not it could actually go ahead.
Yes, that was the big one.
Yes.
But it was fun, it was energizing, and we're just glad to see that people also enjoyed it, and we're very appreciative.
Yeah. All right.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anybody else, any comments? Yeah, Ross has something to say. You're on mute, Ross.
Mute. It's
There
so
you go.
smart. Hello.
Hello.
I would just like to pass on thank you to Seashell and the council for going ahead with this festival. I've never had so many artists and patrons and people of various walks coming up to me and being like painfully grateful that we were doing these productions. So I just want to pass that on to you guys for staying the course.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do. All right.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to our next delegation and let you leave us. Next delegation is Trish Dennell, Community Energy Association, and this is on climate action and the BC Energy Step Code. So,
hello all. Thank you, Mayor Seegers and Council. It's my privilege to be here this evening. I'd love to be there with you. I really enjoyed the last presentation and learning all the cultural things that happened in 2020 for you, and bravo. I come to you from the city of Nelson this evening from my home office. I will just share my slides and we'll get going. Now I hope you can see that.
yes, we can. Thank you.
Excellent. So off I go. So I'm going to talk to you about my organization, the Community Energy Association, and some climate action in general. And then we'll move into the piece that we're really talking about today is the BC Energy Step Code. And I understand there's an item later on in your agenda for updating your building bylaw. And then a little bit of rebates available and community of practice. Just to familiarize yourself with Community Energy Association, that's the nonprofit organization I work for. And we support the local governments of mostly of BC is our focus on all sorts of climate action activities. So one of the roles is to support you with the rolling out of step code and building more energy efficiency. I took a note of the last presenter talking about the digital opportunities that 2020 have provided us with. And one of the things that I learned was at UBCM annually, Community Energy Association has a Climate and Energy Action Award. And this year, your neighbor Powell River won one of the awards, but we had to quickly learn how to do a virtual presentation. And in the end, it worked out. But yes, it was not the year we expected in many, many senses. I digress. Community Energy Association, we do have members. There are many member communities who are active, inspiring climate solution leaders of our province. And another piece that CEA is involved in is something called the Partners for Climate Protection Program. That's a program of FCM and ICLEI, of which the District of Seashell is a member. And you have already established milestone 3 in both your community and corporate ladders. That's showing there, the milestone ladders. And we can certainly support you and your staff for free to help work through those ladders if that's of interest. Another thing I wanted to outline is the climate action tool that CEA has recently released. It's a kind of a do-it-yourself quick guide to climate action or community energy planning, but it's a tool right on our website, so you can kind of monitor your GHG emissions. And we can certainly help you with that or lead you to that if that's of interest. Okay, this the BC Energy Step Code, Building Beyond the Standard. And I presume most of you are familiar with the BC Energy Step Code, but what it is a sort of a laddered approach to changing our building code so that we build to be more energy efficient in BC. Kind of started in 2017 and gave us 17 years to work to the end goal, 2032, which is the time when all new buildings in British Columbia will be expected to be built to be net zero ready. So in order to avoid a rude awakening on 2032, when all of a sudden we need to be practicing our building practices differently, the step code was introduced as sort of stepped approach, helping everyone, the builders, the industry, the councils work towards the 2032 goal. So at this point, we're at the BC Building Code stage average, and that's all of our communities are required to build to the building code. A name of it's called the prescriptive pathway. The Energy Step Code is introducing something called the performance pathway. And step one is just using that performance pathway and working with an energy advisor. And then as you get to higher steps, you're always working with that energy advisor on that performance pathway, but you're achieving more energy efficient building as you go. Some of the timelines that have already been announced by the province is that for the first one to keep in mind is for Part 9 buildings, so your small home, your homes, residential construction, by 2022. Now they haven't announced the actual month of 2022, but at some point there will be a requirement that all buildings are built, all new buildings built to step 3. So that's 20% more efficient than now. So we've got these, 2 years or 1 year to kind of get ourselves ready and understand what it means to be built to step 3 before it becomes required at the provincial level. About the performance compliance, I was just mentioning. So we're no longer following the Part 9.36 in the building code, the prescriptive requirements, but by using the performance compliance, you're having your plans energy modeled, and then you have an airtightness test by an energy advisor. What does the Energy Step Code measure? And it's looking at 3 things. It's looking at your envelope efficiency. So that's your building, making sure it's wrapped with a nice blanket. I like to think of it as a blanket around me. If there's any holes in that blanket, the air is going to go straight to my body through those holes. So try to have a really efficient envelope blanket. Your equipment efficiency, so your HVAC systems and your furnace and equipment. And then it's a performance-based code, based rather than the prescriptive base. Really pleased to see on the Sunshine Coast that you're working together and consulting regionally, or you're working as a region, because of course your builders don't just work in the district of Sechelt, but they also work in the electoral areas and the Gibsons, I'm sure. So it's nice that you're all working together and then the same rules apply. That's the website to, that's your go-to place for anything Energy Step Code. And just some writing, just talking again about the step code is coming, and move early to help industry prepare. And that's really just, it looks like that's what you're doing anyway. So I'll move along. And just if you are wondering about an energy advisor, they are experts in home energy efficiency. They're well trained through NRCan. The federal government budget just this week announced that there will be more funding available to help support more training of energy advisors and rebates to homeowners on the existing home side, but rebates to get energy advisors and get do energy retrofits of your home. That's on existing. I'm getting ahead of myself. Here's another. There's often a lot of concern in the more rural places, such as your own, that local energy advisors are not available, and this certainly is the case. But do not be alarmed. There are a lot of places to find energy advisors. I've listed out Christy Maysack, who she's in Comox Valley, but she comes to the Sunshine Coast regularly and is happy to work with you there. I've spoken to her personally. She's got capacity to support the Sunshine Coast. And also, certainly people come from Vancouver. And remember, a lot of the projects are remote. So it's a model, the modeling's done remotely. It's just at the end where a blower door test is required. Some benefits of working to the Energy Step Code: your homeowner will find lower energy bills, their home will be more comfortable. Just thinking about that cozy blanket. It's a quiet, so if if those foghorns or whatever happens on the Sunshine Coast, you won't hear them anymore because of the increased insulation level. Your home is durable. And the other piece that's really important, it's a peace of mind. Those energy advisors are third party verified, and they're trained energy advisors. One other thing we like to point out in these early stages of working to the BC Energy Step Code: talk to your builders, encourage your builders to do mid-construction blower door test. So in these early days, that's a great way to hire the energy advisor to come in, do the blower door test, learn exactly where the home is leaking when you're just before you're finished inside the house. And then it's so easy to run around with a caulking gun and seal up any of those air leakage places. I just wanted to point out some resources available: Better Homes BC and that Energy Coach phone number. Those are great places that all homeowners can go to get advice on their own homes, on how to make their homes more energy efficient, or if you're building a new home, where any rebates or incentives are. So those are good resources there. Also, and then Fortis BC, as you are a customer, is my understanding. Fortis provides some great rebates for new home building, incentivizing working to Energy Step Code. A little bit of the details there, really encouraging people to work in the early stages in the design process of designing the home to be energy efficient. And there's some great rebates, and that's their website. And the other utility rebate I wanted to point out on for existing homes is something called the ECAP program. That's the income ECAP. It's an energy assistance program for low income people. That's also on the back on that website for Better Homes BC. But if you know people that are complaining or suffering from really high energy buildings, that might be a program that would be of interest to them, because they can get some support in doing some retrofits. Just finally, I just want to point out that Energy Step Code website is just a fantastic place for all sorts of support. to finish up, just stay connected. There are so many resources. There's the Step Code Peer Network, that Better Homes BC website I've been talking about, outreach and registration for builders and contractors. A little shout out to Gibson's next week is hosting a virtual builders breakfast that I know your staff is aware of. And that's another way to sort of help promote the message of building to the BC Energy Step Code. We also have some community of practice tools. I mentioned the CEA, that new energy emission planning tool. We've got for the elected officials, we've got the Climate Caucus and something called the BC Municipal Climate Leaders Council I can provide you information with. And again, stay connected with your Partners for Climate Protection program with FCM and ICLEI. And that's me. So thank you very much for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions or over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Council, any questions? No questions. I think so I know some of us have been hearing about this at the regional district and from, our director of planning and development as well, up and down the coast. And I mean, I'm thrilled too that all the governments are working together.
Yeah.
As you say, people don't recognize the boundaries.
No.
Moving things forward together is really good. And some of the preliminary work that they did, it's in the reports and things that we have in front of us as well. So they're doing a good job. Thank you for being here.
Well, it's been my pleasure. So thank you so much and have a lovely evening and happy energy efficiency.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good night.
Good night. So first I'd like to have a motion to accept the 2 reports that we've just seen. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And Mr. Allen, did you want to say something at this point, or are you going to wait until it comes up to your report?
Happy to wait till it comes along to the report. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to, we have no proclamations. Move on to 5.1, minutes of the 7 p.m. regular council meeting of November 18th. And these are for adoption. Someone like to move adoption? Yep, moved, seconded. Any errors or omissions in this one? All those in favor? Thank you. Item 5.2. This was the regular council meeting to close council meeting of Wednesday, November 25th. Motion to adopt, moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 7.1. Item 7.1 is Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of November 25th, and this is for receipt and endorsement. Someone like to move receipt and endorsement? Thank you. And seconded. Any errors or omissions in this one? All those in favor? Thank you. So now we come to Mr. Allen. This is item 8.1A, some Director of Planning and Development, BC Energy Step Code, Public Engagement Summary and Implementation. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And Mr. Allen, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Seegers. You may recall we looked at this much earlier this year, I believe in February, and received endorsement from council to move forward with the engagement. And as noted in the previous slides, we notified the province early in March that we intended on engaging the public. We were fortunate enough to join forces with Town of Gibson's and the regional district, because as Trish noted, there is a lot of overlap. A lot of builders build in all 3 or 2 of the 3 jurisdictions. And it seemed a great synergy for all of us to work together. So we did some industry engagement, some stakeholder conversations, a questionnaire, and so forth. Really just to set the stage for what's next. We understand that some builders, there are a lot of builders on the Sunshine Coast that are quite keen on energy efficient construction. I believe there's one company that has their own energy advisor on staff already. So there's a certain level of buy-in. It will undoubtedly create new challenges. Energy advisors available on the coast, people's construction techniques and learnings will improve. But we feel it's the direction that it's going, and it behooves us to get on board and take the steps as well and support the both the Energy Step Code Council as well as the local industry. So within this report today, you'll see some of the feedback on the engagement. Those of you who read Regional District and Town of Gibson's reports may recognize some of the wording, and admittedly, we did cooperate to the best of our abilities. We've each created reports. So the Town of Gibson's has rewritten their building bylaw in its entirety. They've taken actually some of our wording on sprinklers and tried to find some common ground. The Regional District took an approach where it amended their bylaw to bring in the step code requirements. So we propose to do the same, yet we have ongoing notes and ongoing ideas for overall improvement of building bylaw 409. But at this time, in order to have the modified bylaw in place for 2021, we recommend a simple amendment to building bylaw 409. So it's amendment number 7 to introduce step code 1 for part 3 buildings, which are complex, or in the staff report here noted as larger multifamily and commercial industrial buildings, as well as part 9, which is residential, primarily single family, but some of the smaller duplex and multifamily buildings. So we recommend first, second, and third reading this evening. And if that's the case, at council's discretion, we would bring it back on December 16th for adoption to put it in place for the beginning of 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Well, while they're thinking up something, I have a question for you. So if it goes into effect January 1st, 2021, you said? Yes. So that would be like next month.
Correct.
So if the application is in now, it's not subject to that. If it comes in January 2nd or 3rd, it's subject to the new requirements. Is that correct?
I had it in the bylaw January 4th because that would be the Monday back. But yes, we would need a proper application as late as December 24th, our last day of regular operations here before the Christmas break, not just a form filled out without plans or payment, but any proper applications we receive in 2020 would be subject to present bylaws.
Mm-hmm. And this has been out in the community pretty much most of the year.
Correct.
It's been in conversation, so it's not something that is going to be sprung on anybody. They've had lots of warning.
Right. Admittedly, we had some comments saying why now, but due to the pandemic and so forth, and we can appreciate and understand that. But the code changes continue to march on, and we're just trying to make sure we don't fall too far behind.
All right. Seeing no questions, there is a recommendation on page 88. Councillor Scott, you'd like to move recommendation 2?
Yeah, no, I think this is great. I think it needs to move forward. It's long overdue. And so I'd like to move recommendation 2, the building amendment bylaw 4079/7 2020 receive first, second, and third reading to include the amendments to implement the BC Energy Step Code to step 1 for all new part 3 and part 9 buildings.
All right, is there a seconder for that recommendation? Seconded. Seeing no further questions or comments, all those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to the bylaw, item 8.1B, page 117. District of Sechelt bylaw, building amendment bylaw number 409-7 2020, a bylaw to amend building bylaw number 409 2003. I'd look for someone to move first reading. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And second reading? Moved and seconded, all in favor? And third reading? Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you for that. I know that's a lot of work on your part, and this will potentially be one off your plate soon.
I'm optimistic. Yes, thank you.
Yes, all right. Thanks, Andrew. Item 10.1. This is from the corporate officer, provincial health order on province-wide restrictions, events and social gatherings. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded, all in favor. Thank you. And Joanne.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is seeking a resolution from Council confirming that all scheduled Council and committee meetings will be held by electronic means only until further notice. With the recent provincial health officer order that was issued on November 19th, the health officer order has required that all events and social gatherings be suspended to significantly reduce COVID-19 transmission. In the specific case of municipal council meetings, there were provincial guidelines issued at the same time that the order was, that encourages and actually states that virtual meetings be held as much as possible. Also, with the latest public health order of November 19th, the District of Sechelt has now gone into phase 2 of our COVID safety plan. And part of that means that staff working from the office have been limited to essential staff, and the rest of us are working from home. Having in-person attendance at our council meetings has required that we have at least 2 additional people in our office to set up the room on the days of the meeting. So for these reasons, staff have offered the recommendation noted above, and really to ensure that council's business is clear and transparent to the public, we're recommending that council consider actually passing a resolution making it clear that council and committee meetings will be held by electronic means only until further notice. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to find my unmute button. It's different on this one. This would be pending a change in the public health order as per the last bullet in the recommendation there. So we're expecting an update when this current health order expires on the 5th, I believe. So if it's extended as is, this will stay in effect. However, if something changes, we'll have to revisit this.
Yes, that's the intent.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, would someone like to make the recommendation as presented on page 119? Moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? Thank you. And moving on to item 10.2. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded, all in favor. Thank you. And this is notice of motion submitted by Councillor McLean, SCRD representatives election survey. And who's going to speak to this? Joanne, you're speaking to this?
Your Worship, it's fairly straightforward as set out in my report. The Councillor McLean submitted the notice of motion in keeping with Council's procedure bylaw requirements. So it is in front of Council for your consideration.
Okay. So we would typically, okay, so the resolution's on pages 122 and 123. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Councillor McLean, did you want to speak to this?
There's my mute button. Okay, yeah, if I could.
Go ahead.
So what this is a motion to enable the District of Sechelt citizens to vote for their Sechelt SCRD representatives, while also working within the requirements of the Local Government Act. My theory of change behind this is that this action will make the SCRD more accountable to citizens, and hopefully improve decision-making through that accountability. The root of this is that elections matter. They're an integral part of our democracy, and the process of laying out a platform, presenting it to citizens, debating it with other candidates is a really valuable exercise. My proposed change would make the appointment of SCRD representatives more accountable to the population. Section 198 of the Local Government Act states that each municipal director is appointed at pleasure by the council from among its members. So what if this decision could be made on something else? What if this decision was based on a survey of citizens? This is the core idea behind my motion. The District of Saanich and the City of Victoria have worked around this law in a similar way to what I'm proposing. They have a survey question on the ballot every 4 years for who the voter would like to serve on the regional district board. Council would then follow this guidance that they received on this survey and appoint the councillors with the most votes from the survey. This is also known as a double direct vote. So how it would work specifically in Sechelt, I'm going to leave to staff. This is a motion to request that staff report back on it. But the basic premise is that candidates for council would indicate an interest for running for the SCRD board seat. Their names would then be on the election ballot twice, one for municipal council, one for the SCRD board seat. In order to win a seat at the SCRD, they would first need to win a seat on council or the mayor. And then secondly, they would need to garner the most votes in the SCRD representative survey. So if you don't win a seat on Sechelt Council, you wouldn't be able to serve on the SCRD board. That's the root of the motion. Welcome to take any questions, or I guess that's the mayor's job to say that.
Ask him any questions you like.
I got one.
Hey, Councilor Rowe.
Oh, I wasn't even on mute. Good thing I wasn't saying anything bad, Matt. So just to be clear, in our example, if this had been in place in 2018, 2 of us would be doing both roles for 4 years. So there's no swapping in the middle.
Yes, that gets into the exact details,
Okay.
which we can hash out through the staff report, but yes, that's the intention.
And is your idea then that the SCRD vote is binding? In that once the council seats are won, is that council obligated? I mean, they'd be crazy not to, but is that council obligated to adhere to who got the 2 highest SCRD vote getters, or is it still classed as an appointment? Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. So again, I want to leave some of this to staff, but I believe the magic in making this work is that it is non-binding.
Okay, all right.
So I have a question then too. So what you're saying is that during the election process, those running for either position would have to indicate interest in actually, we'd have to figure that out beforehand. We'd have to, so this is the details that staff would have to look at. For example, Councillor Scott or Councillor Rowe, more difficult for them to be on the regional board, right? And I don't know in timing of ballots and things, so that would be stuff staff would have to look at. Because I think it's once the nomination period closes, then ballots are ordered. So then at that point, we may or may not know if somebody even is willing to put their name forward to be at the regional district.
Well, I think you'd have to consider that when you decided if you were going to run, right? Like in the year, prior to the nomination period, I think, because there certainly are a lot of engaged people on Facebook, they're going to be thinking about running. So in Matt's scenario, I would think one would think, am I up to the task? Do I have that skill set? Do I have that interest? What would my platform be? That kind of thing. I think you basically would know going in if you were going to go for that, and then you'd sort of have 2 platforms, I think, in my brain, but.
Okay, Councilor.
Yeah, and that's the intention, is you would have 2 platforms. You would have a specific SCRD platform, and you would make this decision very seriously, and hopefully run a significant campaign for that seat.
Okay, Councillor Toth.
just a comment on that part is I can't think that it would be that significant if you can't put advertising money behind it. I'm just thinking of the local government election financing. I don't know that you'd be able to do any advertising or promotion of your platform specifically.
Councillor Lamb, you look like you want to say something. No? Yes?
Yeah, well, you know what? I know, like, I mean, I sat in the CRD chair or seat, and if you're a novice coming in, it's so overwhelming. And so, like, I would not recommend that to anybody to be, you know, because if you're the top vote getter and you're thinking, okay, we want you to sit there for a year and you can't do it, and you think it's a big job, you know. So I really don't think this is a great idea. I mean, you know, and then even staff time, we're struggling with staff time to understand what we're doing right now. So maybe in the future, but not now. I don't know. There's way too much going on. That's my comments.
Okay, so there's a recommendation. Councillor Scott, go ahead.
I think it's challenging. I know I don't have the time in my world to commit. I watch what you guys do, the amount of reading and the meetings you have to do, which seems to be threefold of what the Seashell meetings are. I could see this leading down the garden path of the constituents looking at the ballot going, yeah, they're not willing to go on the regional board, so I'm not voting for them. And I think you lose out on some pretty good people that way, just because of the time they can commit. Myself, I'm committed to Seashell. I see what happens with the regional district, and I'm excited, and I'm proud of the work that you guys have done on the board. I think regardless of whether there was a vote or not, we've got good representation there, and you guys have done a really good job. So I'm not a keener on this one. I could see it, like I said, leading down the road of if you don't have the ability to commit to that time commitment, you're just not going to get voted in for that reason. It's just going to be a sideline.
Anybody else? Councillor Todd?
I just wanted to echo Councillor Lamb's comments. I'm concerned about staff time, and for sure in 2018 pre-election, going on the regional board wasn't on my priority list. You know, after the election, yeah, I thought about it and I had to make structural changes in my life to facilitate it, but I can't imagine trying to have been there November 2018, learning both this and regional district. So I'm glad that we were in a position to sacrifice Councillor Lamb and Mayor Seegers.
Councillor McLean.
So part of the reason I brought this up is because the SCRD is so important. There is so much going on. I think that the SCRD provides some of the most important services. One of the defining election things around the last election issues around the last election was water, which is an SCRD issue. But it's not just water, it's transit, it's recreation, it's solid waste. There's a list of stuff that the SCRD provides to the Seashell. And that stuff really matters. Candidates should be presenting a vision for what they want to achieve with those things. What this change does is it anchors that agenda to create change at the SCRD and represent the people. Right now, I can speak to our election experience. We talk water. We talked a little bit of solid waste. We talked a little bit of transit, but we did not bring out those ideas when we ran for municipal council. We brought ideas for municipal council because that is our first priority. I want people to put the SCRD as equal to the District of Sechelt because the services that they provide are equal to the District of Sechelt.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Scott?
I just want to say this is such an interesting conversation and idea. And I definitely see, I mean, I see a slate where nobody wants their name beside the SCRD box. And just because, it is a massive
work.
But Matt really brings up some great points. To my council, to the councilors who commented on staff time, are you guys worried with regards to putting together this report, or when you speak about staff time, what's related to what? This report or something else?
Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, I just, it's quite interesting because I think it was Councillor McLean that came back and when we were talking about doing something on the boulevard, or maybe it was Councillor Toth, they're saying, are we even going to be able to do something with if we get this grant for the boulevard because our staff is already buried doing so many other things. And that's, we're already asking, our staff, I believe, is overburdened because go in and, I just believe that they've got their hands full already. And, like I agree with Matt 100%. I think this is awesome that a regional district does provide a whole bunch of things and we should be focused on it. And Sechelt should have 2 votes. And if we had one government on the Sunshine Coast and the District of Sechelt had 2 votes, yahoo. And then those people would be looking out for Sechelt and working for the regional district. So there's my comments.
Councillor Toth?
Yeah, I mean, it's not in the staff work plan right now. And when we hear about the constraints that staff have currently, I guess my question is, what would we take off their work plan to facilitate this, or what would we move down the road? So just starting to realize we keep asking for a lot of things out of our staff, and they've been really nice and gentle about not pushing back. But I think it's to their own detriment.
Councillor Scott?
When we come on to council and we start talking about all our strategic planning and stuff like that, we lay out all the framework and discussion points when it comes to items that are managed by the regional district. I think in that planning, the message is pretty clear for the members that do represent Sechelt on that regional district board, that they know what the direction that we'd like to go, and I haven't seen any deviations yet from the voting on the regional district that deviates from what our strategic plan is. So I think it works with what we have now.
Okay. So there is a recommendation on page 122 and 123. Basically, it's that we request staff prepare a report on the feasibility.
I'll move that motion.
You move that motion. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All right. Any further comments or questions? Okay, so this is for having staff put a report together on the feasibility of having the survey included on the 2020 municipal election ballot. And also be it further resolved that a single transferable vote be considered as the voting methodology for this survey. That's part of the process that they're looking at. Okay. All right, any further questions or comments? All those in favor? I'm gonna vote for it. All those opposed? All right, motion is defeated. Councillor McLean?
Thank you for discussing it and thinking about it seriously. I brought it forward. It didn't pass. That's all right.
Oh, that's good. Thank you very much. Item 10.3. This is the festival and events update. A motion to receive the report, please. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And Siobhan, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you, Your Worship. So before you is a report that is for information only. The purpose of this report is to provide council with an update on the festivals and events and other cultural activities that we were successfully able to run this year as a municipality. And there were quite a few. And so you can be proud of what we were able to accomplish given the challenging circumstances, as you heard earlier in the report on the Seashell Arts Festival. I also had a meeting yesterday. I have monthly meetings with the BC Cultural Managers Network, and this includes cultural managers from almost every municipality in the Lower Mainland, as well as Kelowna and Victoria and Cowichan Valley and a few other regions. And Seashell was able to produce on par or even more than many of these municipalities were this year. So we did really well. And some of it was luck, I will admit, because of the timing of things. So if we had tried to run anything right now, we'd be hooped. But we did all right. Just so that you are aware, we are planning on moving forward with our main cultural activities again next year. And of course, they will look a little bit different again. This is consistent with what other municipalities in the Lower Mainland are also doing, is they are budgeting and planning for moving ahead with programs and activities that they can do with the types of restrictions that were in place in around August. So thinking about activities where there's less than 50 people, primarily outdoor activities, activities where people can stay apart, activities where you can, even if it's free, you're doing registration, these types of restrictions. And so because it takes quite some time to plan for these events and activities, we will be moving forward in that way, recognizing that probably a number of things will need to be virtual, but given the experience that we've had this year, being able to find ways to make things a little bit more interactive if possible. As well, I will be attending the meeting on December 15th with the Minister of Canadian Heritage, the Honourable Stephen Guilbeault, along with our MP, Patrick Weiler. And we are allowed to ask one question of them. So if you have any suggestions of a question, by all means. I was considering asking a question about whether or not they see Canada making a move similar to what Germany has done, where they have decided to consider culture essential in the same way that we consider the ability to go to our parks or have some sort of recreational opportunity, even if there's a pandemic happening, that we have some level of services available for the health and well-being of our community, and recognizing culture as one of those essential services, rather than just simply a form of entertainment that we can do without for months and months on end. So, but if you have other suggestions of a question that you would like me to put forward on behalf of Seashell, I'd all ears. And otherwise, that's the end of this report.
It's interesting you bring up that talking about culture as an essential service. This actually came up on the weekend at the library board meeting as well. They started keeping track of all of the various things that they're doing and saying, you know, we think we should lobby to become an essential or be considered an essential service, that they don't shut down for the same reason, because it actually is quality of life for many people.
Yeah, and even things like access to the internet and information services and a safe place to go, and you know, and that's what our parks afford people as well in other ways. So there are these things that you know, some of us take for granted, but they really are essential to the health and well-being of our communities.
Anybody have any questions for Siobhan? Councillor Toth.
It's more a comment than anything. Looking at page 126, you know, heard fantastic things. I wasn't able to attend, but heard fantastic things about the drive-in movie event, the movie events. So be neat to see if we could pull that off again next year. And with Canada Day, seeing here at the bottom there that looking to do something similar for 2021. So it's a good thing I still have my parade maps. I'll have to adjust some timing, but yeah, I think we did well on Canada Day as well, all things considered.
Yes, thank you. And through the mayor to Councillor Toth, it was a wonderful event, a wonderful Canada Day and a wonderful drive-in. I had so many comments afterwards that people wished that they knew about the drive-in. Of course, it sold out quite quickly, so it is what it is. But the people that were there, just absolutely so thankful to have something. But I should mention, if you didn't catch it in the report, the cost to run a drive-in for one evening is over $7,000. So we were very lucky this year that a sponsor stepped up and offered to pay that expense for us. But it was a wonderful, wonderful event. And I would love to bring something like that to the community again. Yeah, we were hoping we could perhaps bring Santa around the community, but in a similar fashion to how we did our Canada Day parade. But unfortunately, with the current restrictions, it's just not feasible.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to say I was always surprised by the ideas that you came up with, you and your team and everything else, to put on these events. You had to be very innovative and flexible, and you never knew what you were going to be dealing with. You could put plans in place and they could change, and they did a lot of times. But I think it was really great. The community really enjoyed the activities. I know when we did the drive-through, communities for Canada Day, people were so happy. Some of the people said, "This is the first time I've seen my neighbors since," right, from the end of driveways. They were waving at each other. It was like a big party because they could actually see other people. So it was really good how it brought the community together. So thank you for all the work you did on those.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to item 10.9. This is on page 171, and this is District Support for Gender Equality Grant Application. A motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you, and over to you, Siobhan.
Thank you for moving this item up further in the agenda. So before you is, as you know, a very last minute item. This is an item that was brought forward to me on Monday. And so to be perfectly honest, staff have not had a considerable amount of time to really review the project being proposed here. But we did feel it was important to at least bring it before council, to allow council the opportunity to look at it themselves and determine whether or not they felt it was the right fit for the District of Sechelt and whether or not they would like to endorse this project to move forward to the Community Foundation for consideration. I believe Lori Lesk is in the audience listening in. And so if there was a question that was quite specific to the proposal that's attached to this report, you may be able to ask that of Lori directly. This program was meant to be completed by March 31st of 2021, but I spoke with the Community Foundation and they said that they will be able to receive an extension, but it will certainly probably pose some challenges for some groups applying for this grant to be able to complete the projects. It's really, everything about it is quite last minute. But I did want council to at least have the opportunity to consider it and decide whether or not they would like this to move forward.
All right, any questions, comments? Do we want to bring Lori in to ask questions of her? Council, where would you like to go with this? Councilor Kuster.
I just want to say, I mean, I've dealt with Lori and the great work she does with all the LGBTQ kids in our community and all the stuff she does. So I'm happy to endorse this recommendation. I personally don't need to talk to Lori because like I said, I've talked to her a lot and I think she does great work. So
would you like to make a recommendation?
I will move recommendation number 1. Council can endorse the above recommendation that we council endorse the request for support as received from the Sunday in the Park with Pride Society by directing staff to sign a Community Foundations of Canada Fund for Gender Equality intermediary agreement.
All right, there's a seconder for that. Any other comments or questions? All right, all those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Siobhan. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
And Lori has her hand up. Do we want to give, now Lori, if I bring you in, you're gonna keep it short? There you go. Go ahead, Lori. Unmute yourself.
Yes. Thank you so much. Don't put my face on. I'm going to start crying. I just wanted to just correct that it's not that it ends on March 31st. It's that they set it up so that you receive half the grant. You have to have spent half your grant by March 31st. And we won't even get started until March at this rate. So it's actually for the whole year and goes into 2022. The grant runs it's for a whole year, not just for 3 months. So you'll get your money's worth, okay?
All right. Thank you, Lori. You do
and
great
thank
work.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Siobhan.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. So moving back to item 10.4, page 136. This is a request for decision regarding Street Patios 2020 Pilot Program Summary. And a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Mr. Allen, over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Your Worship. This report was authored by Marina, but given its position in the agenda this evening, I offer to take it on. But just as a summary, this spring we dove into the 2020 summer patio pilot project. One patio was constructed with Rotary Club and SDBA on Calgary Street. We had a number of other inquiries. There were a number of patios on private property as well, which linked to the provincial patio project for the license expansion area. We've been evaluating this and looking forward to further success next year. And we note that the province has extended their license expansion area for one more year into next summer. The batch 44 is one prime example. There's a number of other folks that took advantage of that, the Bricker as well. So given the province is extending theirs, albeit these projects are not identical, staff recommend extending it one more year with an attempt to get a little bit more uptake in the spring and summer of 2021 and provide some more detailed analysis on how we might move forward in the future. But ultimately getting people safely into outdoor greeting spaces on streets and sidewalks and patios and whatnot might be a way of building community throughout our pandemic period. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor McLean and then Councillor Lamb.
Less of a question, just a couple comments. I think this is an outstanding program. Not just getting people to build community with these patios, it's building an atmosphere. It's bringing people outside to the street, making our community a more welcoming place. There's a multitude of benefits of having street side patios. So I want to thank staff for putting this together pretty quickly, I should add. I don't think we got as many uptake as we would have liked. So just my one piece of feedback for moving forward is see if there is any way that we can reduce some of the costs of construction required. Because I noticed that trend from a few that were interested and didn't end up doing it. So I don't know if there's possibilities there. I'll leave that to staff to figure out. But I think this is a great program, and I look forward to extending it well beyond a year once this trial period is done.
Councillor Lamb and then Councillor Toth.
So this is once again just a 1-year term, and like I think it's great because anybody that wants to become involved in it, they can plan for it now, and they can get their patio ready for March, April. So and then there is a potential to move this forward to a longer period of time. I mean, you make an investment, and for 1 year, it's a tough nut to crack. So is there a potential to move it on to a longer term? That's all.
Andrew, did you want to address that?
Yeah, thank you. There certainly would be potential to move it on to longer term. I think what we are hoping to do is extend it for another year. Let's see, again, as noted by councillors, receive some more uptake, receive some more feedback from patio operators, patio users, Downtown Business Association, and come forward again in a year's time or 10 months time and reevaluate, and then look at how we can make recommendations for the future. I think there's no question that outdoor use within our downtown core and within our commercial areas, Davis Bay, Porpoise Bay included, add some real vibrancy to our community, and it's something we can strive towards.
Councillor Toth.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb sort of hinted at where I was going, in that option 2 actually is to adopt a permanent program. And I just wanted to know more about the implications of if we went that route versus another year extension. Councillor Lamb, points out that some businesses still might be a little gun shy to put out that investment for 1 season, but if they think they might be able to do 2 or 3 years, might be worth it. You might get better patios, and what have you. So I was just wondering if there's any strategic advantage over extending the pilot another year versus just saying, let's make this a permanent thing.
Certainly a policy decision for council to consider. And admittedly, it was both of those options were very much on the table when Marina was writing this report, and her and I were conversing. And I think ultimately it came down to 2 things: watching the province expand theirs for another year, and noting the fact that we really had on public property one formal official patio. It's not as if we had a dozen and could really formally analyze. I mean, that said, although we'd like to see more use even of that one particular patio from a safety perspective and an acceptance perspective, we feel it was a success. And we by staff certainly support carrying this on, and by no means want it to end after next year. It's just, I guess, just taking those steps towards a successful program.
Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I kind of lean towards just doing it for 1 year for now. And the reason being is that it's still a pilot program. There's still a lot of kinks to get figured out. And since we only had 1 built, we only have 1 to judge how well it worked. So I think with this year, this summer is going to be a lot better than last summer, no matter what. Even if we're still under COVID, we know how to deal with it now. So businesses can plan for that, where they couldn't plan last year at all. So I think we're going to get greater uptake this year. So I'd like to continue on just a one year trial until we get a better idea of any other issues that may arise.
I see a couple of things that staff will have to look at if we do make it permanent, to Councillor Toth's comment and question. Currently, our bylaws don't allow use of our sidewalks for stores. So we would have to do some changes to some of our bylaws, I believe, like I forget what it's called, but it's the highways and whatever bylaw, right? So some changes there. The other piece that I think the province would need to work out with the actual businesses is around capacity. Because one of the things they were looking to address with the patios was giving capacity to restaurants that had to limit the capacity inside, right, to help them stay viable and have be able to. Sorry, I've got emails coming in the background here. So, you know, we'd have to deal with those kinds of things with the province as well around capacity. So I'm in favor of keeping it as a street patio pilot program right now, with a view to having it go permanent, and staff look at what would need to be changed. I guess one question I'd have right now, if we were to pass this tonight, so if we say we're going to extend this program, would there be any limitation on somebody putting out a patio now? Could they put one out now and leave it out till next October?
This is true. Yes, could do. We haven't paused it or canceled it per se. It's consideration of an extension. I mean, albeit we expect a higher use in the spring and summer, but there may be some businesses that could benefit from off-season use for their own individual needs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, council, would someone like to make a recommendation? Councillor Toth.
I've heard enough to be convinced to just keep it as a pilot for the time being. So I'm happy to move recommendation 2, that the street patios pilot program be extended to October 31st, 2021.
And there's a seconder for that. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Allen. Moving on to item 10.5. Acting Mayor rotation schedule. Motion to receive the report. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Any questions or comments about this? Joanne, did you want to say anything about this?
No, Your Worship, not really. It's fairly straightforward and follows what we've been doing for the last couple of years. I'm just available to answer any questions, should you have any. Thank you.
All right, I think we sent the schedule out to all of you and you said yes, those months work. So I think we're good to go. Any questions or comments? I just want to say that I've really enjoyed watching the growth of some of you I mean, some of you have had experience in chairing these meetings, you know, in chairing meetings, but for others that hadn't had any experience, it's been really worthwhile to see your skill grow. So that's kind of cool. Thanks for taking it on. So there's a recommendation on page 156. Someone like to make that recommendation, and you don't have to read it. Councillor Rowe moved that recommendation and it's seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Item 10.6, proposed 2021 Council and Committee of the Whole meeting schedule. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And Joanne, back over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, this is a fairly straightforward item. As council
just cut her off.
is aware, are required at it's
Okay, Joanne, your internet connection is breaking up back and forth, so we'll just handle it.
okay.
Thanks.
Good.
All right. So each year in December, we need to approve our meeting schedule for the year. So staff went through and looked at all of the various meetings, etc. You'll notice in there that UBCM is actually a week earlier this year. When I saw this come out, I went and checked, and sure enough, they moved it up a week. Usually it's the last week in September. They moved it up 1 week. So other than that, meeting schedule is set out. August, we're having 1 council meeting and no CAL meetings to give everybody a bit of a break in August. Any questions about the meeting schedule? Councillor Toth?
I hate to ask the question, you know, knowing that we schedule sort of first and third, second and fourth for our meetings, and looking at that schedule in September with UBCM having been moved up a week, I'm just wondering if it would be worthwhile making one of either the 8th or the 22nd a council meeting rather than a committee of the whole, particularly perhaps even the week before UBCM. If we've got any last minute stuff that we need to pass for that conference.
So you're saying September 8th? Councillor McLean?
Yeah, I think Councillor Toth makes a good point, and I think the 22nd would be well suited for a council meeting.
So do 3 council meetings in September?
No, just the 1st and the 22nd.
1st and the 22nd. So we'd have one on the 22nd, yes, because we have another week in there then too, right? Between that and regular council. Does staff want to weigh in on that?
I'm going to try speaking and leave my video off and see if that helps. Staff see no concerns with that one way or another. And if it's scheduled now, then it will, you know, form part of the full year schedule, and we'll advertise it, provide public notice, etc. So I see no concerns.
Yeah, no, that's good. And if we look back over this past year, when we took the break in August, that first meeting back in September was really long. Remember? So if we, right, it totally makes sense. If we make September 8th a council meeting, we could actually split it between the two if we needed and cover off everything that is kind of piled up in August. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Councillor Toth, how would you like to move this?
I guess I will move that the 2021 Council and Committee of the Whole meeting schedule be approved as amended by changing September 8th from a Committee of the Whole to a regular council meeting.
Is there a seconder for that? Seconded. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 10.7, Seashell Airport Lease Modification Agreement, Cook and Braithwaite. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And Joanne, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is seeking council's approval for the mayor and corporate officer to sign the airport lease modification agreement that's attached to this report. The District of Seashell has a license, a Seashell Airport license with the parties listed there in the report. That's Hans Cook and the estate of Frank Braithwaite. Section 27 of the lease provides that the licensee will have the option for one renewal of the license for a further 5-year term after the license expires at the end of this year, December 31st, 2020. The lease provides that renewal will be possible if the licensee provides 60 days advance notice in writing, and of course subject to the lease being in good standing. As I note in my required time frame, and license payments are up to date. You'll note from my report that the licensee has also requested that the names of the licensees be modified by removing the licensee Hans Cook and adding Beat Meyer. The license was consideration and also the modification agreement is attached. Financial implications are that the current lease fee is $1,548 per year, which has been increased every year since the lease was first entered into. It's been increased every year to cover off CPI. And that's my report. If you have any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? And have we lost Councillor Lamb? We have. Councillor Scott.
Since both parties that in the original lease have passed, I find it interesting that the lease wouldn't just terminate and move towards a new lease with living parties. I don't know. This is the first time I'd seen this when it came across the council package, so I'm not sure what the legalities are to that. Maybe Joanna can speak to it. Both Hans passed away 6 years ago, and Frank passed away a year and a half ago. So, what are the legalities and just how that works?
Joanne?
Sure, I can make an attempt. In the case of the estate of Frank, it continues to be a recognized company, if you will. So that party remains, relevant. We did receive notice a couple of years ago of the death of Mr. Braithwaite, but that his estate continued to hold his portion, their portion of the actual hangar, I guess. So it does continue to be owned by the estate of. Now, whether that, I don't know the breakdown of the estate of, but we do have legal confirmation that there is still a financial investment in that share, in that portion, in the name of the estate of. There is no particular language in the lease, I guess. I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, there is no particular language in the lease that would allow that 5-year renewal to not take place due to a death. So I guess that's my thought on that.
Okay, no, fair enough. Fair enough. And I'm guessing that Beat may just purchased the share from the estate of Hans. So, okay, well, that's fine. Just questions. That's good.
Councillor McLean?
So the rate that's been proposed, do we know how that's compared with the airport study we did, I think 2014, that set out suggested rates? And is the real question, is there any ability to change that within the renewal option?
Your worship?
Yes.
In response to that, I can say master lease is that this one-time only renewal be allowed, and that all remaining terms of the existing lease stay in effect. So there isn't any room to change anything really in the lease. And again, I do note this is a one-time only renewal. So after the 5-year renewal term is up, the lease will be expired. And, we'd have to look at what we want to do then, but the current lease would have expired.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, there's a recommendation on page 161. Would someone like to make that recommendation? Councillor Scott?
I'll move recommendation 2 that the airport license agreement with Hans Cook and the estate of Frank Braithwaite be renewed for 5 years, 5-year term from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2025. Further, that the licensees be amended by removing Hans Cook and adding Beat Mayor to further that the council or that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute the required modification agreement.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? Thank you. Item 10.8. This is a verbal report. Actually, there's nothing in the agenda on this one. This is Seashell Library Board Liaison. Do you want me to speak to this? I can speak to this.
Or I can speak to it, whatever. I'm the liaison asking to be replaced, so I suppose I should speak to it. Yeah, I was the library board liaison for the last 2 years, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the role. They're a great group of people, and they've got a great library director there who's going to lead them for a little while to come yet. Unfortunately, my schedule is such that I can no longer do Saturday meetings. And they did try and see if the rest of their board would be willing to change the meeting date to accommodate me, which I thought was really nice of them. But unfortunately, it seems that Saturday mornings are all that work. They've offered to start earlier, but that doesn't actually mitigate the problem for me. So yeah, I need somebody to take my place as the library board liaison. And a further recommendation is that I think we should officially name an alternate as well, because I didn't have an alternate that I could call on. I know the Mayor Seegers attended a couple times in my place. But yeah, that's really the sum of it.
Ask a question.
Yes, Councillor
How
Rowe.
often do they eat? How often do they eat? How often do they meet?
It's the last Saturday of the month. And they don't meet in July or December.
I can do it. I'm going to have a friendly discussion with Matt about the grant committee, so I'll take this on prior to that.
Okay, Janice.
I was gonna say, I can also do it.
Oh,
Well, would one of you like to be the liaison and one the alternate,
Let's have a vote.
or both? And you go to the meetings you can go to?
yeah, we can figure it out between the two of us. How about?
Yeah, for sure.
Councillor Toth?
One further thing I did want to add is that due to a weird terminology issue with the acts that govern library boards and the societies, you are actually a voting member of the library board, which I've always had, discomfort with, but just wanted to point that out ahead of time.
So then, do we want to just appoint Councillor Rowe and Councillor Kuster as liaisons to the library board?
Well, if we have a vote, do we need a name attached to that vote then? Do you know what I mean? Like, we're gonna want one person and then.
You guys want to duke it out?
No, Janice can do it. I'll be the alternate.
Okay, so recommendation that Councillor Kuster be appointed as liaison to the Seashell Library Board with Councillor Rowe as the alternate. All right, moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Item 10.10. This is a request for a decision. It's a request for noise bylaw 519/2012 variance for West Seashell Elementary School. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Mr. Allen.
Yes, thank you. I apologize for the very late report. It was much surprise to myself when I found I was writing this yesterday morning at last minute. So it's school district's capital project, of course, the addition to West Seashell Elementary, and the contractors, or one of the subcontractors, came to bylaw enforcement and noted that they need to work well into the night beyond our 9 p.m. construction timeline. So the report notes CCM construction, but the latest letter we have is from Unitech. So I would assume there's a number of companies on site. So to further refine on recommendation number 2, they have now selected, it is in fact Friday is the day to pour. So they'll be working late into Friday and early into the hours of Saturday. The principal of West Seashell Elementary School, Jeff Marshall, has written a letter which will be delivered to nearby residents, alerting them, it's dated with today's date, so it may well be out, but alerting them to this. So we can expect traffic during the day, the cement trucks during the day, but it's electric trowelers and whatnot that are needed to cure the concrete as it's poured into the night. So we can expect some noise, some lighting, but I do believe the bulk of the traffic and noise will happen during the day and within the hours up till 9 p.m. But seeking a variance to permit work through the night, simply due to the large scale of the foundation pour. Thank you.
So are you indicating that the company is no longer CCM Construction?
Well, I believe there's a number of companies. The letter I had today was Unitech. And so it's not abundantly clear, but it is ultimately the school board that owns the property.
So how would we want to modify this? Just allowing construction between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. on between December 4th and December 5th?
Yeah, on West Seashell Elementary School property might be the cleanest. Mm.
Okay. All right. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that the principal there has already taken steps to let the neighbors know. I did receive 1 or 2 complaints from immediate neighbors about some construction related activities there. So I have no doubt that if it was going to be tomorrow night, that we'd be hearing about it again. So I'm glad that it's going to be Friday night. I've worked on jobs where these pours or this work has to be done late at night and overnight, and unfortunately it sucks for the neighbors, but there's no way to get around it. So I'm happy to move the recommendation that has been crafted that council approve a variance to the noise bylaw 519/2020, allowing construction works between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. During the period of December 4th to December 5th, 2020 at West Seashell Elementary.
Perfect. And it's been seconded. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Moving on to 11.1 council reports. All right, let's start with, we'll start at the bottom this time. Councillor Lamb, then McLean, Scott, Kuster, Toth, and Rowe. So Councillor Lamb, you're up.
I've been self-quarantining. So I've done nothing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McLean.
I have been in a lot of meetings, but nothing that I'm going to bring to this table, so nothing to report.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Nothing to report here.
Thank you. Councillor Kuster.
Oh boy. I've been to quite a few meetings, but really nothing specific to report other than I do want to say I did attend the library board meeting, my first one on Saturday, just to fill in for Alton. And it was actually a real eye-opener for me. And I have to say Leanne and her team are doing a great service to this community. Like, it's pretty incredible, especially during these COVID times. So I appreciate what they're doing, and I want to thank them for what they're doing. And yeah, it's pretty incredible what they've set up there. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
I don't really have much to report, but I just wanted to tag on to that library thing real quick and to say that, you know, Leanne joined us last year, or this year, in February, and it was supposed to have just been a short-term contract, sort of, but from, you know, between other gigs, you know, we're extremely fortunate to have her here in Seashell. And then COVID hit and the world fell apart. And so it was rather timely that we did have her here. And so far she's been able to facilitate the extensions that have been offered to her by the library board. So other than that, I don't have anything to report.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
Not much really, just busy at work, busy in life, saying little prayers every night that my son can come home at Christmas. Am attending the Affordable Housing Conference day 1 today, goes on for the rest of the week. There's going to be some interesting sessions. The one stat that was mentioned today that has stayed with me, and, you know, albeit this is provincially, even though there's a lot of building going on, for every one house or one home, whatever that may be, that is built, we're losing, for every one rental that is built, we're still losing 3. So we're still, as a province, in a pretty significant deficit. So it's going to be interesting to see what the sessions bring over the next couple of days. And that's about it. Attended the intergovernmental meeting today with everybody. Really good turnout. I think there was 33 of us on there, and that was great. And yeah, that's it.
All right, I'm going to mention a few things. So as you know, I took on a board position for Island Coastal Economic Trust, and I'm finding it fascinating. to really find out how they do what they do and how to access the funds. So I'm getting some ideas for the Sunshine Coast for next year. So watch out, there's going to be other stuff coming forward there. The CAT meeting, Community Action Team, has been awarded $100,000 for next year for funding. So part of what's happening right now is we're putting together the plan that we have to submit as to how we're going to actually use the funds here on the Sunshine Coast. The facilitator that we had is based in Vancouver, North Shore, and she's, for over this year, she's been coming back and forth. Given what's been happening over there and the travel issues and everything else, she's not going to be staying on. She'll be missed because she was really good. But you may have seen the advertisement in the paper. We are looking for a facilitator for that position. I was asked on behalf of the Sunshine Coast to attend the Hospice Volunteer Appreciation event and speak to the value that the volunteers provide to our residents on the Sunshine Coast. It was a great event. And I mean, I come from, my parents both came from big families. So I had like 50 aunts and uncles, that kind of thing. So lots of hospice experience in the background, some good friends and stuff. So I know what they do. They're very much needed here on the Sunshine Coast. What else we got? I attended the Vancouver Coastal Health virtual open board forum. Couple of things. At that meeting, they actually shared the actual numbers for the Sunshine Coast of the COVID cases from January 15th to November 27th. They're saying is there were 48 cases from January 15th to November 27th on the Sunshine Coast. And it was indicated Patricia Daly was there. So she's one of the health officers. I don't know, for Vancouver Coastal Health, is she the health officer? Okay, I don't. Anyway, what she indicated was that in response to requests, continual requests from all of the areas, they anticipate that fairly soon we will be getting breakdowns of the numbers ongoingly. Another thing that came up there is we were talking about support for mental health and addictions. So looking for a treatment center here on the Sunshine Coast. I have been in conversation with Chief Paul about that as well. And what Karen Olson indicated on the call was that once Trellis is up and running and we're looking at repurposing Shorncliffe and Totem, that is one of the potentials to potentially have some beds here for treatments. I attended a session yesterday, I think it was, with Andrew Allen, the Sechelt BC land use planning engagement. So they are starting the process to look at a high-level land use plan for their whole SWAYA. And this was the first engagement with other governments here on the Sunshine Coast, and they will be going out to the community. It's going to be community-wide consultation so that everybody has input and we create that together. Then one final piece, Monday, the 7th, there is a Sechelt Chamber session. I will be there in conversation with them from noon till 1:30, and it's via Zoom. So if you want to come hear me talk and see what they ask me, I would love the backup. Anytime, anywhere. All right. Councillor Toth, over to you for SCRD report.
I assume you'll send us the information for that chamber meeting.
Yes.
I'm just looking, I've got a PCD agenda review, but hopefully somebody can make it to back you up. My report is attached. The only thing I really want to highlight in there is the water rates have been set for 2021 on the second page. User fees are going up 14%, and the parcel tax is 5% for an overall increase of 10.4. Certainly not as big as it was last year, and hoping that there won't be very many big increases going forward. In the upcoming SCRD meetings, I've got a special board meeting listed there for tomorrow at 1:30. We've actually got a special CAS meeting tomorrow at 9:30. And we'd asked if we could do the board directly following CAS, but I haven't seen a confirmation yet on whether we can or not. So the board meeting may or may not actually be at 1:30. And yeah, happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Councillor Toth? All right, moving on to council correspondence. First motion to receive the correspondence. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And there are 3 items on here that are marked for action. Item number 1 is from the BC Mining, Reform BC Mining. Anybody like to move anything on that one? Moving to item number 4, active travel to schools, pages 191, Councillor Toth.
Sorry, actually just back on item 1. I'd be curious to hear more from them. And I actually noticed that on the second page of the email, they do offer to come do a webinar. And so I'd like us to extend an invitation to them to present. Because I just don't know enough about the mining industry.
Okay, is there somebody who'd like to second that? Second it, okay. All those in favor? Thank you. So staff will request they come and present to us. Item number 4, page 191. This is a letter from School District 46. Any comments, questions? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'm not super clear what their ask is in the immediate effect, but I do just want to comment on, I've received a couple comments about walking to Chatleach through some of the trails underneath the power lines. And I just want to flag and see if there is possibility for us to make some improvements back there, because it is a pretty good route for some students that are quite close if they go through the trails, but quite far if they take a car.
Okay, Andrew, do you want to address this?
Sure. I can say there's a couple of things, and we did reach out to the school board, or specifically Chatleach, early in the year, but I think our timing was just off. You know, as the school was reopening again in September, their focus was entirely on COVID response and the strict level of protocol that schools have. And one of the changes is, there's a radius, I think it's 3.5 kilometers. So basically you have to live west of Wakefield Road in West Sechelt to qualify for the bus. So you've got kids walking all the way from Mason Road, and all that area are now presently, for COVID restrictions, not eligible for the bus. And thus far to date, the kids have been fairly lucky. The weather has been okay. It's been fine. I admittedly, when working in the office, drive my son by and drop him off there, and I see kids from all areas walking. There are some sort of little access trails through the Silverstone Heights and Clayton family properties. We're looking at in 2021 getting into planning for phase 3 of Silverstone Heights, and certainly trails and access networks and whatnot will be high on our list. Marina is keen to get into this. There's the grant that we've applied for that was at a recent council respecting programming and mapping and so forth. It looks like there's another grant out now as well that active transportation can apply for, but we have to select our priorities there. But there's a number of things that are happening, and we hope to make connection with the school board and talk to them on the right levels and when the time is right. And it seems now that they're reaching out to us, there's an opportunity for staff and our community planner to take the lead here.
Okay, so what would you like to do, council, with this? They're requesting, they're requesting that we adopt an integrated planning approach, consider a children and youth first approach, and consider active travel for children and youth when planning infrastructure upgrades, etc. Councillor Toth.
I mean, reading the items here, I'd like to assume that those are things that we're already doing or putting a lens on, just given that, you know, our staff have families. They have a vested interest in these items, but I'm willing to just refer it to staff and offer any support at the staffing level that they feel may be appropriate. I don't know that we need to do anything further with it.
Do we want to write a letter back to them saying, thank you for your letter and we look forward to working with you on these various projects or something?
I think you just wrote it.
No. Would you like a letter to go from, you know, council to the school district in response to their letter?
I muted myself.
Sure.
I don't see it necessary, but I'm happy to see what others think.
Well, I too am a bit confused because I read this and sort of think we're already doing this already. Other than, you know, when they talk about dedicated resources and action planning. So I don't know, it's a bit bizarre, but I don't see any harm in answering this letter with another letter saying that we look forward to working with them. But then again, now we're asking staff to do something that doesn't really need to be done.
I think staff are already doing it. Councilor
Yeah.
Scott.
I think we already have a dedicated resource. I mean, it's not sources out every
Yeah.
grant he can. He is the dedicated resource for this.
Well, and I know Marina's been on meetings with the school district on the active transportation and looking at routes and all of that. So, okay, I'm okay if you guys are okay. We don't need to send a letter. It's good. Next one. This is the last one in here. This is from Sailor Soils. And I believe they are looking for a letter of support for a grant application. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I'll move that we comply with their request and write the letter in support of their grant application.
Okay, is there a seconder for that recommendation? Second. Any comments or questions?
I think it's great.
Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. Councillor Toth, did you want to say something before we move on? Okay.
No, I was just going to point out that I've spoken to somebody who's working with Salish Soils on this, and they were very passionate and very excited to get this moving. So I strongly urged them to speak to the mayor, and I believe they did. So
Yep, they did. And they have, from what I understand, they have SCRD support and Gibson support. So, all right. Any emergency items coming forward from staff?
No, Your Worship.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded, all in favor?